I don't think I'm as scared of flying anymore as I used to be. So I just wrapped up a work trip and I need to unpack my suitcase. And so we're gonna unpack my suitcase and talk about travel tips for people who hate flying, just like me. Hello, my name is Kim. I am an engineer for a tech startup, and I talk a lot about navigating your tech career, as well as tech reviews, travel products, as well as cozy gaming. And I just got back from a work trip. I flew from Portland, Oregon, all the way to Montreal, Quebec, which is not a quick flight. And I had 4 separate flights to take. I flew through moderate turbulence twice, and I did it all without white knuckling the seats, without having a meltdown and asking the person next to me to hold my hand, and with this many tears. This is coming from someone who has been afraid of flying for most of her adult life. Incredible for me. And I want to share just really quickly the things that worked for me and some resources, because I want everyone to have this feeling that I have, which is I can do anything and it's not as terrifying as I think it is. So I had been dreading this trip since I booked my flights, because it's not the trip itself that I was dreading, it's the journey. And if you hate flying, you already know my mind was like, I would rather wash rice grain by grain than step foot on an airplane. Like, the thought of getting in an Uber to the airport would give me peak anxiety. I took a lot of steps to really educate myself about flying in all the ways that I could. I have 3 books that I used to read, but this go around, I subscribed to the Fear of Flying subreddit. That is the best resource for anyone afraid of flying, aside from going to see like a hypnotherapist that I can think of, and I am so serious. Before, I used to read books, listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos, like fine. Captain Steves is one of the people that I watch on YouTube. Love Fly is a podcast I listen to. Skyfaring and Soar are books that I've read, but none of that compared to the Fear of Flying subreddit. There are tens of thousands of other people, just like you and I, who are terrified of flying and petrified. And that subreddit has been so helpful because everyone's so compassionate. It's full of other people that suffer from agoraphobia. It's full of aviation geeks. It's full of airline mechanics. It's full of a ton of pilots that have been verified. And people ask questions all day about turbulence, about takeoff, about recent air disasters, about airline safety, about all of the FAA stuff happening right now with the government shutdown, about you name it. And people are chiming in, bringing in the most heartfelt and helpful responses and advice. And there's a lot of mantras that I learned from that subreddit, which I will talk about in the actual flying part of this video. Because remember, y'all, I told you I went on 2 flights with moderate turbulence. And let me tell you, the planes were rocking and rolling, but I did not freak out one time. And I'm gonna tell you how. But first, let me open up my suitcase because we need to unpack. Is it gonna explode? No. I got my mind mentally prepared about like flight statistics. I get it, like the statistics don't work for me, right? So you're more likely to die in a car crash on the way to the airport than on a plane, and like you have like a 1 in like 37 million chance of dying. Our brain is like, but I'm the 1 in the 37 million. This flight is the 1 in 37 million. And I had to really train myself to be like, you aren't that special. One of the other things I did also, which really helped through the Fear of Flying subreddit, is just remembering that like pilots want to get home too. With the exception of the 2, very rare incidents, the Helios flight? One of the flights where the pilot went rogue or whatever, with the exceptions of those, which are like super rare, pilots have families, they want to go home, and they're evaluated for their mental clarity all the time. And it is really, 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 really expensive for an airline to have a crash. Folks, if you live in the United States, we all know how much companies love capitalism. And if you think that the CEO of United wants a disaster on his hands so people stop flying United so he cannot be as rich as he is, like, I really had to remind myself of that, of like, it is really expensive to not fly, and airline pilots want to go home. But something else I had to do with my brain is to remember that like the news, it's their job to get people to click on articles and to scare people. So I also learned to stop reading the news. I saw there was a recent accident with the UPS plane, and that happened the day before I was supposed to fly home. And I told myself, I'm not gonna read anything about it. And I didn't. And I went home completely ignorant of exactly what happened. And that was so good for my mind. So I would encourage you to not read the news. If you know that it's going to make you really, really paranoid and scared, don't read the news. Honestly, I don't read the news hardly much at all, to be honest. I'm really ignorant about what's going on in the world right now because it's all depressing. It's all politics. It's all Trump did this and this person did that. I worry about the things I can control. Okay, and speaking of the things that I can control, I also had to reframe my mind and remind myself I'm not in control, but also you pay people to be in control. And also, do I really think I know better than pilots who have received tens of thousands of hours of training? I don't know better than the pilots. I don't know better than aircraft mechanics. I don't know anything about a plane. I think the sound is weird, but it's like, what do I know? I think that flap should be down, but what do I know? When I reframed my mindset that way of like reminding myself that I don't know better than airline pilots who've been flying for 20 plus years. Yeah. And then another thing that really helped me with my mindset is recognizing that when I'm spiraling and I need to stop myself. Up to even like the day I was gonna fly out, because I took a red eye. I was playing with my son with some Magnetiles and we built a little airport and like he had his little plane and he like flew it into the little aircraft control tower we made. And I saw that as a sign of like, I'm in danger and our plane's gonna crash. When you feel yourself spiraling and thinking negative things and seeing signs that like aren't really there, stop yourself and realize and recognize I am spiraling or I'm believing something that's not real and I need to stop and refocus myself. And that really helped me a lot for all of the things leading up to the flight. Okay, so one of the other things that I did to prepare for this trip was to make sure that I brought things that were gonna make me feel very comfortable. One of those things was I had my over-ear headphones, my noise canceling headphones. I had eye mask that I sprayed with like a stress reliever, anxiety kind of spray. I had a heated eye mask that heats up with oxygen. Oh, it felt so good on my eyes. I brought comfy socks. I brought my pillow that had a hood. And I brought a travel blanket. Now I know for some people they might be like, oh, that's a lot of stuff to bring. But if you bring the things that help you feel comfortable and relaxed, it's gonna help a lot. That blanket was super great for me to feel very comfortable on the plane and relaxed and get a little bit cozy, if that makes sense. I stole some tea. I stole some teas from the hotel because, y'all, the hotel was really nice. It was in Montreal, so you know you're gonna get like good quality tea. Also, other things to reframe my mind. I thought about what sets me off about flying. So for everyone, it's a little bit different when it comes to flying. And it's good to think about like this is that little essential oil that I put in a spray bottle and just spray it on stuff. What sets you off about flying? For me, it's takeoff, turbulence, and the fear of mechanical failures. And oh, I also got this. Which according to the guy at like Customs, he was like, this is a tourist trap. But I don't know, I tasted this and I thought it was pretty good. This guy was selling it at this little like market thing and I wanted to support the local e-commerce. Or commerce, not e-commerce. Thinking about what sets you off, I learned about the sounds that happen. I learned about the sensations. One of the things that helped me with my fear of turbulence was seeing other airline pilots and mechanics and things like that repeatedly say, planes don't care about turbulence. Turbulence is another day on the job. And when people, every post, I swear, I saw on the Fear of Flying subreddit, and I read through hundreds, y'all, every time there was a pilot on there that would say, when people would ask, how do pilots feel about turbulence? Pilots would say, it's another day on the job. I don't care. I don't get nervous. What scares me about turbulence is people not strapped in and then me having to fill out paperwork. And just reading that over and over just really put my mind at ease that like, it's not a big deal. That helped me going into flying and being like, okay, well, if we experience turbulence, like for pilots, it's just like, whatever, don't spill my coffee. And less of like, oh snap, I gotta get stuff together. And so that really helped me a lot. And then the other thing was, what did I say it was? Mechanical failures. And then I learned about redundancies on airplanes. Apparently there's a ton. There's a backup for the backup. There's a backup to the system and there's a backup to that backup. And sometimes there's another backup. And learning about the amount of training that they have to do and recurring training was very helpful for me to learn about mechanical failures, as well as like in their training, they train for scenarios that like aren't really and shouldn't be possible, but like they're training for them. And if they don't pass them, they don't get to fly. So that was super helpful to learn. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about tips for takeoff because that is one of the areas that always sets me off. And this trip, it like did not set me off as much. I got really familiar with the sounds. And for takeoff, I used my noise canceling headphones. I downloaded a playlist of Zen music, which if you have not, I highly recommend downloading like a playlist of music. Spotify has 17,000 of just like deep meditation music, sleep music, anxiety, where it's like low frequency. Sometimes it's really calming. It's like stuff you'd hear at a spa. I put that on. I turned the volume up loud enough to drown out the sound of the engine. I had a backpack on the floor and I put my feet up on the backpack. And what that did is as we were lifting off, I felt less of the movements of the plane. And although it was doing this, because takeoff from Portland is always bumpy, but I did that and I just really zoned out and I said, uncomfortable is not unsafe. And I just repeated that to myself until we got to cruising altitude and leveled out. Takeoff out of Vancouver, Canada was probably the most turbulent takeoff I think I'd ever been in, because it was on like a prop plane and it was just like the worst takeoff I'd ever been on. But not at one point did I cry or did I white knuckle or did I do anything. I was just like, this freaking sucks and I don't like it here, but I am going to get home because I got to get home and I'm going to be fine. I'm just going to be a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to be a lot of bit uncomfortable, but we're going to be fine. Also, the guy next to me just like watching whatever he was watching on his phone and laughing like helped a bit. But yeah, our little name tags that we got. How cool, an application engineer. I thought these were really cool. Turbulence. Let's talk about turbulence because my flight to Montreal was at that moment in time the most turbulent flight I had ever been on. And then the flight from Vancouver to Portland topped that one. On the flight, so leaving Chicago, before we left the gate, the pilot had came on the intercom and said, we are expecting moderate turbulence. And you all know the slightest bump sets us off. And when the captain said that, I said in my mind, this is going to be extremely uncomfortable and I'm not going to like this, but we are going to get to Montreal because flying is another day on the job for them. Turbulence is another work day for them, and uncomfortable is not unsafe. Y'all, the plane, it was doing this. It was doing this. It was the wacky, wavy, inflatable, arm flailing tube man, I promise. And it, at the time, was the most uncomfortable flight I'd ever been on. But one thing that helped me was putting down the tray table, getting my coat, which was kind of like puffy, and just putting my arm on my coat and just kind of like resting my head in my coat that was nice and fluffy like this. I had my headphones on, I had my music on, and I just kept repeating in my head, uncomfortable is not unsafe. Uncomfortable is not unsafe. Uncomfortable is not unsafe. Uncomfortable is not unsafe. This sucks, but uncomfortable is not unsafe. Another thing that I did was I took my mind and I tried to place myself somewhere else. So I said, you're not on a plane. You're in a car. Your husband is driving. You're on the really crappy road on Highway 26 going to Seaside where it is completely unpaved and it's super bumpy, but you're fine. And that worked wonders for me. I did not white knuckle the seat. I did not ask the neighbor next to me to hold my hand. I had 0 tears that entire flight. I just said to myself, uncomfortable is not unsafe. I hate this, but you're gonna be okay. And I did not freak out. And I think the feet on the bag combined with like just this, just kind of put my body in a different way that I didn't feel like I was absorbing the turbulence as much. I had told my husband, I was like, you'd be really, really proud of me for the flight that I just went through because I did not freak out at all. Okay, so low-key, one of the other things that I didn't mention, that I forgot to mention, that is super duper key, talking to your doctor and getting medication. I had 2 types of medication that I was able to use for this flight. One of them was called hydroxyzine, which is kind of like a Benadryl, and it's easy to get. Because it's not like a controlled substance or anything. And so I had also talked to a doctor a few weeks ago and got prescribed a low dosage of alazapram or I don't know. The generic version of Xanax, which is a controlled substance. It is illegal in some countries and really like it's kind of hard to get. But that was more effective than the hydroxyzine. And I did take that before boarding the plane and that really helped take the edge off. You don't freak out. Like I freaked out 0 times and I will contribute a lot of it to that. But also, I'm gonna contribute it to myself. And one of the other key things that I'll say is figure out where you like to sit on the plane, whether you are an aisle person, a middle person, or a window person. I am a window person all day. I don't like to sit on the aisle. I don't wanna have to be disturbed. Once I'm sitting down, I need to be cozy. I don't wanna get up where people have to go pee every 10 minutes. I don't like standing up on planes unless I absolutely have to because I'm terrified of like turbulence hitting and then I'm just like gonna go, and then I'm one of the people on the news that has to go to the hospital and they have to do an emergency landing. Like, I don't wanna be one of those people. I wanna sit, be buckled, be good. But some people really don't like the window. So it's good to figure out, are you a window person, an aisle person, or a middle seat person? And that's the seat that you book. Never, ever, ever fly the cheap ones where you don't get to pick your seat. Don't ever do that because they're gonna stick you somewhere you don't wanna be. I also will almost always pick a wing window if I can. I'll always do that. Don't fly in the back, that's the bumpiest part of the plane. All done so. Just gonna leave that Clorox wipe in there because it's helpful to have. Okay. Thank you, Samsonite. So what are my takeaways and my tips? Go to the Fear of Flying subreddit, figure out what your triggers are, get you some medication if you need to, and repeat to yourself that flying is not unsafe and uncomfortable is not unsafe. Like, even though the stats are there, like, you're not that special, no matter how much you want to think you are. Because what's going to happen is if you think you are that lucky and that special and you cancel that trip or don't take that trip, you're going to regret it so much. Because one of the things that I really regretted about previous trips that I didn't take is I used to track flights on the FlightAware app of the same exact flight number and route, and I would track them for days or weeks beforehand. And I would see the same plan, went and came, landed, took off, landed. They landed. And then I realized, like, none of these planes crashed. All these planes made it. Like, why wouldn't mine make it? Why do I think I'm that unlucky? And it just like didn't really make sense to me. And I'm hoping that also like doesn't make sense to you and you don't cancel that trip because you'll feel so bad and you'll feel so defeated and you'll feel so much more empowered knowing that you can take things on. Okay, and then one of the other things I want to take away and leave you with. I learned as a mom, you really have to believe in your kids' ability to do things. So there's a lot of things that I would say, you're not big enough to do yet, you're not smart enough, like you can't do this yet. But sometimes you just have to believe in your children that they can do things. And you have to be your children's biggest cheerleader. But that doesn't just apply to children, that applies to yourself. So if you give yourself self-limiting and self-deprecating thoughts and talk that you can't do something, then you're going to end up living that. So if you say, I can't get on this plane, I can't go fly, you're holding yourself back and you have to give yourself grace and confidence that like, yeah, I can do this. It might really suck and be uncomfortable in the moment or for some of the moments or like the whole flight, but you can do it and you'll get there. And coming out of it, you'll feel so proud of yourself. I'm not gonna say I'm completely over my fear of flying. I definitely still need the help from my orange capsules, my orange bottle. I still need to repeat my mantras, but I'm not petrified of flying anymore. And I wanna go on more flights and I wanna take my son on flights with me and I wanna see parts of the country and parts of the world with my family. And I no longer feel like the dread of planning it and getting on a plane because I flew on the 2 toughest flights and most uncomfortable flights I'd ever been on, did not shed a single tear or feel any kind of danger while I did it. And it's so freeing and I want everyone else to feel that same kind of freedom and happiness and open their mind to the possibility that they could do it as well. Like, I know it's really scary. I said for 20 plus years, I've been afraid of flying. Almost 20 years, my entire adult life, basically, I've been afraid of flying. I don't know when it started. I don't know why it started. It has held me back from seeing the world. It has held me back from seeing loved ones retire. It has held me back from going to really beautiful places. It has held me back from saying goodbye to very, very important and cherished loved ones. And I don't want that to impact me anymore. And if you are also suffering from the same kind of feeling, I don't want it to impact you either. And don't cancel that trip. I know you're thinking about it. Do not do it. Because what you will miss, and one of the other things you'll notice on the Fear of Flying subreddit, is there's a whole tag for what I would have missed. And my goodness, is it so cool to see. So don't cancel your flight. Go on that trip. Go make those memories. And let me know how it went. I don't know who this video is for, but I hope it was helpful. And if it was, give it a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know that you found value in this video. That also lets me know that I helped somebody. Because honestly, that's all I really want to do with these videos is help people. And I don't know, the world is too big. It's too beautiful. Life is way too short to be stuck inside a house having a lot of regret. The orange bottles help a lot, y'all. So, just gonna say that. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Mwah. Bye. Don't cancel that trip.